Okay. What's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. Playing some more RimWorld. This is the Eorzean Disney World playthrough. And it's going pretty well, I mean, overall, except that I don't know how much longer it's going to last, just because it's not super interesting. Mostly the game just kind of goes by, and I'm going to end up making my goal pretty quickly, but that's okay. So that's all there is about that. And yeah, that's all there is about that. So this week on this channel, we had RimWorld, and we've had some Archipelago, both, you know, a little solo action and two brothers play. And we've, you know, Archipelago, that run didn't take too long. So I guess, you know, it's a question of what to do next. And I did spot a game that might be interesting that a lot of people have been talking about, called Animal Well. And that looks like it's apparently sort of a Metroidvania, but pretty different of a Metroidvania. It still is 2D and involves platforming. I guess involves some puzzles. I don't know. I didn't really look at it much. It looked like it might be kind of scary. I don't know. It seemed kind of dark. Like, it kind of reminded me of RimWorld a little bit, which I find a little scary. I find it unnerving. So I don't know. That's a possibility. But last night on Two Brothers Play, we did, you know, Lego finished StarCraft 2. Me finishing Dark Souls 3 would have taken a bit too long, so we just started fresh with Lego doing Final Fantasy Mystic Quest and Chrono Trigger, and I did Civ 6. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with Civ 6. I probably put in like, I don't know, 20, 30 hours into it in the past. And I've never been that into Civ. But the last time I played it, I thought it was pretty good, and I liked it. You know, I played it for a bit. And randomizers make everything better, so I was like, fuck it, let's just give it a shot. I didn't realize that it requires both of the DLCs, so which I didn't have, and I have no knowledge of. So, yeah, I really just went into it and got bombarded with stuff that I don't know anything about, and I don't really know how to play. So, a little daunting. Certainly a little daunting. But I would like to, I think it's interesting. It felt like maybe it would just be too easy. Like, it's just an easy version of Civ. But I guess it kind of depends on... I mean, you could say it about a lot of randomizers. Multi-world stuff. You know, if you're playing with people that are all doing stuff like Fire Emblem 8, and you, like, rarely get a new check, it might be tough. you know, if you go a while without getting any new research. But, like, he picked 2, like, SNES RPGs. So I just got bombarded with tech at the start. Just all sorts of stuff. But since I don't know how to play, I still struggled. The barbarian hordes were constantly at my doorstep, and already I can see I made a bunch of stupid mistakes. But it might be fun to do some more Civ 6 rando alongside some other stuff. Like Super Metroid, of course. So you might see something like that in the near future. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, just kind of like I'll keep finding certain things to upload. Like I said last week, like I feel like I don't really have any backlog right now that I can just upload. And for a long time, my hard drives just seemed filled with backlog. But I think I will probably this week start uploading some of that old RimWorld stuff, just for people that are interested in more of that. Some fun, different runs. And then, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Over on the Exploring series, put out a video on Maslow's Fire Part 1. Like I said, it really didn't need to be 2 parts. The total final video length, I think, is like an hour and 12 minutes or something. So it's like, it really could have just been one thing. But it was a lot for 1 week, and I wasn't feeling it, so 2 videos. And then later, probably in January or something, or whatever, you know, when I release all these combined videos, that's just another one on the pile. It's a little scummy, absolutely, but on the list of scummy YouTube things, not too bad. So then, yeah, Maslow's Fire Part 2 coming out tomorrow. And then I think I'm starting on like a 3-parter that I already know ahead of time is going to be multi-parts. So, plenty of SCP. And I was chatting with Lego during one of our two brothers play about horror games, and he expressed interest in, you know, recording horror game footage for me. And, you know, I made it clear that he'd have to do like a full 100% playthrough of the game. You know, he'd have to get footage of all the little messages and notes, and, you know, he'd have to have the footage, you know, record it all and kind of linger on all that footage so I can use it in videos and blah, blah, blah. But he's interested in giving it a try. You know, of course, I would buy the game for him, of course, and pay him for the footage and the time and stuff. But it'd be nice, like I said, to just have someone locally to do it. So then he can just put it on like an external hard drive, hand it off to me when he comes over to my house. Bada bing, bada boom. And so I said the first one I'd like to do probably is Alien Isolation. Just because I like the Alien universe. It's a game that I have actually tried to play and just couldn't have the courage to get through it. And I think it would probably make for a pretty cool video. Just going through the story. And I said, like, the latest I would like to have all that footage done is by October. You know, obviously a bit before then, so I could actually make the video. But if he could get it to me anytime before then, you know, I might just throw it out there as a video. So, that's something. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I don't think he's really big into horror games, but I do know that he is braver than I am when it comes to those. Because I could not get through Half-Life Alyx for the fucking life of me. As soon as it went into the dark sewers with the head crabs and stuff, I was like, I'm done. I can't. But he played through the whole game, just, you know, I mean, he said it was scary. I don't think he's like stone cold. But he did it, so. Yeah, I mean, you can show me pretty much any horror movie, but once I'm in control of the characters' like movements and actions, it's too real. It's too real, man. It impresses me, those people that just love horror games and can just devour it and they enjoy it. It's crazy. But I guess probably plenty of people say that about people that like horror movies. Like, how can you watch that? It's terrifying. Like, no, it's not real. It's just on a screen. And I guess it's sort of the same thing. I don't know. It's just this little extra step. Anyways. So yeah, that's all that. Solo role manging. Let's talk about that real quick. We went over, you know, some more rules and changes and things like that. And then Malkalon went back to the guy that had hired him to find this mansion out in the forest, this horror mansion. And Malkalon convinced the guy to be like, hey, you should send another crew. Send another little group of mercenaries to scope the place out. But hire me as well. You know, I'm a magic user. I would help a lot. So just pay me the same rate, 5 silver that everyone's getting, and I'll help them. And I rolled, and I convinced him. So he hired me, and away we went. So it was me and 6 burly men. So we got to the entrance of the mansion, and there were a bunch of larvae out front, kind of eating the bodies of the guys from the last expedition, which is a great start for the new guys to come in and see a bunch of larvae consuming the old guys. But, you know, we fought them off using the new minion rules, and that was really easy. And then we went into the mansion, and of course, that's when we had our big combat encounter against, like, 4 hell wasps and 10 larvae and 6 hook scuttlers. And I laid down a big minefield, and that was a lot of fun. And, you know, the burly guys didn't get roughed up too much. Malkalon ended up getting hit by a hell wasp, but thankfully, you know, he did not die and have wasp larvae explode out of him, so it was all good. And that was it. That was basically the whole session. You know, combat, now that we're leaning more into like tactical grid-based 4th edition D&D combat, it certainly takes longer, but that's okay. I mean, it depends on kind of what you're into. I think, like, that's why I really dislike 5th edition D&D. I think the combat is boring and takes too long. And that's kind of a killer. And 4th edition, at its height, when we were really into it, like, combat took a long-ass fucking time, but it was interesting. You know, it was fun. It was like playing a good board game with a lot of strategic choices and your characters in there, and, you know, all sorts of stuff like that. I wouldn't really want to go back to 4th edition, because I do think it takes too long. All the numbers could be crunched down a bit. Which I think is what stuff like 13th Age and Shadow of the Demon Lord and, you know, similar games like that kind of were inspired by 4th edition. But, you know, that was the one big problem with it. So yeah, I mean, I'm fine with lengthier tactical combat as long as it's fun and interesting. And part of that is the players, the characters, having a lot of cool abilities, a lot of fun choices in combat that they can do. They're not just casting Eldritch Blast for the 1000th time. They're not just swinging their sword. You know, they're doing different things. And then also the monsters, having lots of different varied abilities and changing the battlefield and, you know, restructuring things and having different targets with different, you know, priorities and stuff like that. So it's a two-sided thing, and when it works well, it works really well and is a lot of fun. So I don't know if we're there yet, but I think we're decently close to it being fairly interesting. And case in point, on my family game, the same system that we did yesterday, we finished off with a big battle against goblins in the forest. And mostly just because I wanted to have a big battle with goblins. And I wanted to, use the minion rules more extensively. I wanted them to kind of have this big combat. So it was against 16 goblin minions, and then like 3 snipers and 3 spine cleavers. And it was just like dumping out minis out there, and they were ambushed and surrounded by goblins. And I was just like, okay, let's just see how this goes. If this goes really badly, maybe we'll hit the reset button. And it didn't happen. But I just want to see how this goes. And, it went really well. They definitely did take damage. One of the characters did go down, but was healed, patched up. They certainly took some damage, a few of them. But they were cutting through minions left and right. I mean, characters were using different abilities, spells were coming out, and we had some terrain out there, like tree trunks and stuff that was out there that people were using. And that's what it should be. Like, every character should have different abilities that they want to use in combat. That isn't just, I swing my sword, or I cast Eldritch Blast. And, again, 4th edition did that really well. Where using your, basic melee attack was, a last resort. Or if you had nothing else to use, because you used it for, an opportunity attack or something. But otherwise, I mean, you were always using some special ability. You had at-will powers that all did something differently. So, something special. You had encounter powers. You had daily powers. And it was a little crazy because every character just had, sheets. I mean, all of us, when we were sitting at the table, we had sheets of powers, that were unique to our class. And there were just loads of classes, of course. And you could multi-class, and it was just sheets of powers. But it was interesting, because the fighter never just said, yeah, alright, I swing my sword. The fighter was like, well, I use Iron Will, or whatever, whatever. Sword of Vengeance is their at-will ability. And it did something special other than just roll and hit for damage. So I'm not at that, and I don't really know if I want to be quite at that level. But, yeah, I mean, for a quick skirmish, they all have encounter abilities that they can each use, once. They can use their encounter abilities once per encounter. And those get used, because they're good. I mean, Mighty Blow is a very basic one that just does double damage, but they're always incentivized to use that. And I want to put more of that kind of stuff in. Stuff that's not too complicated, but just is more interesting than just swinging your sword. Coolest project of rewriting the rules is working out. Sounds like it's been worthwhile to work on. Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. I don't know. It's just kind of a current interest. I'm sure I'm going to stop solo role Mangg, or it'll go on hiatus for a while or something. And then we'll come back to it at some point. And my family game, probably eventually that's going to have to go on a hiatus for a bit as well during certain seasons. But then, yeah, we'll always have this system. Now, just the other day, they actually announced 13th Age 2nd edition. I think the Kickstarter went live. Yeah, it was funded in 62 minutes, apparently. So, 13th Age. Okay, well, I mean, if you want the full explanation. So, the lead designer of Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition was a guy named Rob Heinzu. And he left Wizards of the Coast and joined up with Jonathan Tweet, who was the lead designer of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. And they designed a game called 13th Age, which was meant to sort of be like Pathfinder, just like, hey, you like D&D, but you've got issues with it, come play our game. It's it's D&D, but better. And, 13th Age is very kind of inspired by 4th edition D&D. So it's quite tactical. I don't think it's as video gamey and grid-based as 4th edition, but it's pretty close. And, I've gone through the bestiary. I love the bestiary. I think it's fantastic. And I haven't really looked at the core rules too much because it's a bit of an old game now. It's 10 years old. And it's not like insanely popular, but it gets mentioned from time to time. But now they have a 2nd edition on Kickstarter, and I may go in. I may go in on it. I don't know what they've all changed. I don't know how it's better. 13th Age brings crunchy but streamlined D20 rolling combat to the table, where every character has their moment in the spotlight. No class gets left behind. For 2nd edition, we've revised almost every core class spell, power, and talent to give players a wide array of effective options to choose from. Over time, it was clear that players found some 1st edition class spells, powers, and talents much, much better than others. Okay, so they did a balance run through. And monsters. Okay. So they revised all the core monsters. And if you look at the core rulebook for 13th Age and compare it to the bestiaries that they put out later, there is definitely a huge difference in encounter design and monster design. And that's why the bestiaries are so good. And so I looked at the core rulebook for some more monsters, like the kind of core stuff that you expect to see, and none of it was that inspiring compared to the other stuff. So that's really good to hear. I don't know. I mean, I could look at they have kind of a preview document for the 2nd edition. I could look that over. I don't know if I want to do that right now and talk about it. But I don't know. The thing is, I really, I want this game to be enjoyable specifically for both me and my family. That's like the design philosophy for Shadows of Adventure. And that's a very specific thing. Oh shit, I never built my hospital. Okay, well, let's have a baby. Sure. So, I want a lot of abilities, a lot of spells, a lot of customization options. I want it to be fairly crunchy. I like all that stuff. Like Pathfinder. I like Wrath of the Righteous. I just love, the wealth of character options in that game. That's what I enjoy. My family, though, not so much. They wouldn't get excited about all that kind of stuff. They wouldn't get excited looking at a list of all these feats and having all these multi-class options and blah, 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 blah. They would prefer it to be just a bit more simpler. Healthy childbirth. Awesome. I do need to build a crib, though. So we're trying to get a game that is deep enough to satisfy, min-maxers, the more hardcore crowd, but also shallow enough to appeal to the, average sort of beer and pretzels gamer that doesn't want to read a rulebook. A tricky thing, and I think most games do not go into that too much. And I think so far Shadows of Adventure and, sort of Shadows of the Demon Lord kind of kind of do it. Because, yeah, I mean, if you just want Unga Bunga, I hit things with my big club, and I don't want to think about a spell ever existing, you can pretty much do that, and you'll be quite capable in combat, you know? You'll probably have a bunch of health and defense, and you'll hit really hard. And that will be it. That will be your thing, and that's fine. Whereas someone like me can be a wizard or something and have 45 different spells that I can just use to my heart's content. And I'll certainly have far more utility. Like out of combat and stuff like that, or control or something in combat. But as far as just like killing potential, probably not. I mean, maybe multi-target I'd have a bit of an advantage, but it also drains my stress. So, you know, it's interesting. So, like, Pathfinder 2nd Edition gets a lot of praise. And now they've, like, revised it, or they're revising it. And, you know, it's being worked on even more. And a lot of people seem to really enjoy Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And I, for one, can't wait for Owlcat to make another video game. This time based on 2nd Edition. But I was looking at it, it's just like, I know for a fact this is way too complicated for any of my players to be interested in or enjoy. And they could probably handle 4th Edition D&D, I think. You know, going slowly, level 1, like, you really don't have that many powers, and it's pretty easy to understand the system of at-will encounter and daily. They wouldn't really be interested in all the options available to them, though. So I'd kind of have to just make characters for them and level them up for them, which is what I did for 5th Edition D&D. Whereas here, Shadows of Adventure, I can give them their class sheet. They can read the short list of abilities that are there, and they understand all of them. You know, they can pick one when they level up. It's not too complicated. So I don't know. 13th Age, 2nd Edition. Maybe that's gonna be really good. Maybe that's something that's up my alley. It might be the game I'd rather play instead of Shadows of Adventure, but I don't know. Hard to say. So anyways, the family game yesterday. So they were in Thunder Tree. After going over more rule questions about the system and everything and their characters, they got started and they're like, okay, what do we do? What are we doing? What are we doing with the dragon? And, you know, my mom, I had told her about my plan with, like, the crater nearby of Phandalin and the portal and all that sort of, and the mission they're going to go on. So she keeps trying to urge everyone to get to Phandalin. But, you know, a few of the other people aren't really interested in going to Phandalin. It's just a big crater. Why would they go there? And they want to deal with this dragon and the cultists here. And so they spend literally like 20 minutes just talking and like going back and forth about what to do with the dragon, what to do with the cultists, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, holy shit. No one in here is a leader. No one can just say, all right, enough of this. We're going here. Like, it's just a constant discussion. It's basically just like a group of people deciding where to eat. And no one can commit to any place to eat. It's just the worst. It's really just unpleasant. You know? But as a DM, it's like, what can I really do? I guess. I could have had the dragon, I guess, just fly away, and then they couldn't consider that as an option for the moment. I don't know. I don't know what to do in those situations. They're really just indecisive and lack leadership. And I thought Lego would come in and be a clear leader, but, you know. And he was, like, the first session he came in. He was very just direct and like, okay, we're going to go here, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. But then he got almost everyone killed, nearly. So now he's backed off, and now he consults with everyone, and that's, like, not what they need. They don't need consultation. They need leadership. Because bottom line is they don't really know anything, and they're not going to really be, I mean, most likely they're not going to be that upset just being like told where to go and just to do something. Most of the time, it's better to just do something than sit there and talk for 20 minutes. So eventually they're like, okay, let's just go to Phandalin. You know, it's like 2-hour walk away. Let's just go there. It wasn't a 2-hour walk, by the way, but at this point, I didn't care. So, 2 hours later, they approach the crater, and they see a man there, a wizard wearing a suit, named Artemis. Because if I'm DMing my world, there's going to be an Artemis. And so this is an older, middle-aged sort of Artemis. And the wizard of the party, I told him that, like, okay, you immediately recognize this guy as Artemis. Perhaps the greatest living magic user. Very reclusive. He famously turned down a position as Minister of Magic. And he's rarely seen. So, he just shows up, you know. And so he explained the whole situation, and he did kind of blame them for their inaction. And they, you know, tried to maybe argue a little bit, but it's like, no, I mean, you were in the Wave Echo Cave. You know, you were on your way to stop the Black Spider and, you know, stop him from using the Forge of Spells, and then you fled and you left and you forgot about it. So, yeah, you know, he kind of blamed their inaction a little bit, but gave them the chance to rectify it. And he explained that, you know, there's a ritual that he could perform, very complicated one, very dangerous, requires a lot of components, but he could do it to close the portal and stop an imminent demonic invasion. So he gave them a list of components. And the list of components I have here. I think I've read this before, but 3 dragon scales, color irrelevant. 1 red cap, 30 ogre teeth. 1 emerald, at least a pound. 30 ounces of iron shavings. The breath of a dying man. 3 crimson mountain lilies. A jar of spores from a fungal hulk. 1 mermaid's kiss. 6 chul eggs, and 1 glass of fresh Amalthean goat's milk. So that was originally cow's milk. I changed it to Amalthean goat after seeing it in one of the monster manuals, and I thought that was more interesting. So, you know, they went down the list, and they were, you know, asking him about certain things, and they were rolling some intellect checks to see what they knew about certain things. And yeah, they quickly realized how kind of extensive and dangerous this is. And I was very clear for Artemis to emphasize that, you know, they probably won't be able to get all of these things in 1 month's time. But they need to get some of them and get some of the things back to him in 1 month's time. So it's a scavenger hunt with a strict time limit, but they don't have to get everything. And I said to them that, you know, even if I were playing and this was, you know, I was in this campaign, I would probably struggle to get all of these things within 1 month. And so, like, one of the first things my mom says is, well, we should split up. And they, like, start discussing that, and they're like, okay, yeah, I guess we should split up. And I just had to, like, I was just like, that was the most insane thing I've ever heard of my life. You want to split the party at level 1 for a month, going off to different parts of the continent to collect various parts of these dangerous ritual components. Like, it was just I had to put a stop to that immediately. And I don't normally step in like that as a DM to just tell players they're being insane, but like I was not gonna take part in that. Because once that happens, it's like, holy shit. How do you get these back together, you know, before the month? Like, you don't. They're separated for a month. They start traveling in different directions, like, that's it. So I had to put a stop to that. Truth be told, if they were a little higher level, which they should be for this kind of campaign thing, you know, I'm obviously throwing them into this. And they were all competent, and they, like, each half of the group had someone that was, like, sort of a leader that could guide them and be intelligent. Yeah, it's not the worst idea to actually get all the things. And if I were playing, I'd probably entertain the idea. But just from a logistical standpoint of a group of people sitting down and playing a game, yeah, it's insane. It's never going to happen. If you were playing digitally and you wanted to split the thing and have two separate nights where, you know, one group played on one night, one group played on the other night, each working their own angle of trying to collect stuff, like, okay, maybe, but usually people like to get together and all play as one big group. So, yeah, it's just not going to happen. And so Artemis offered to teleport them all to one location. Like, he's here right now. He will teleport them all somewhere if they want. And so they decided to get teleported to the capital city on this continent, Staunton. And that's a sensible choice. I couldn't really complain about that. So they all, you know, he snapped his fingers, whatever, told them Godspeed, and they all suddenly appeared in an alleyway in Staunton. So then they promptly did a whole bunch of shopping. And, you know, bought some stuff, sold some stuff, you know, a few interactions here and there. And they managed to get one of the items from their list right away. The easiest one, the one I knew they would get very easily. The 30 ounces of iron shavings. You know, go to any blacksmith and that's pretty easy to purchase. But they had also heard about the emerald. So an emerald weighing at least a pound, like an uncut emerald weighing at least a pound. Now, I looked this up online. In real life, quite rare, actually. There's only like a handful of emeralds that have been found in the real world that are around that are over a pound. Quite rare. This is a fantasy world, so I could have made it a little bit more common, but I told them that as far as they know, there's two, really. There's one held in the Museum of Natural History in Staunton, and there's another rumored to be in a cave, you know, somewhere nearby on the continent. And they didn't ask themselves or question at all why it's rumored to be in there and why no one has taken it, because it would obviously be pretty fucking valuable. Not insanely valuable, but pretty valuable. But no, they didn't question that. And so they're like, okay, well, we're in Staunton, let's go check out this museum. So, you know, I just went online, I grabbed a, I grabbed a map of some random, like, D&D museum thing, battle map. And I'm like, okay, well, here it is. This is the museum. You know, it's not a very extensive building. Just a bunch of exhibits, and there's armed guards around there, and blah, blah, blah. And a bunch of exhibits in, like, glass cases. And, you know, Ray, their little goblin ally, did have sense magic as a spell, so he told them that there is a magical aura around all the glass cases. Because you know, they were like, well, there aren't any alarms in this world, right? So it should be fine. And I told the wizard, like, as you know, there are alarm spells that exist. So they kind of confirmed that the cases all had alarm spells. At least. All I said was there was a magical aura around them. They assumed it's alarm spells. It's probably a bit worse than that. It's probably like a paralyzation spell or something if it gets tampered with. So they sat there for like, 10 minutes going back and forth, trying to think of a way to steal this emerald, and they just could not think of it. And my brother-in-law, for his profession, he picked burglar, and he's like, I can steal anything, but I can't steal that. Like, they just could not think of a way to steal this thing, and it was really disappointed. And I had to say, like, to them out loud, like, man, and like, if I were playing, I would fucking love this. This is my bread and butter. Like, just give me this insane task, and just, I'll do it. Like, I would not leave that city without that emerald in my hands. That's for damn sure. One way or another, it would happen. Oh, man, yeah, because I remember this time playing Sprawl. And we had a job. We got a job from, like, a gang or something that we wanted to get in with. And they... I don't know the specifics of why they wanted this, but apparently, I guess the leader of the gang was, like, really big into baseball or something. And there was this wealthy guy living in a penthouse suite in the city. And he had, in a case in his suite, this, like, autographed bat or something like that. Like, his kind of famous baseball player signed it. And so they're like, okay, you go and steal that bat from that guy. You get me that bat and you're in. You're cool. And I'm like, all right, we'll fucking do it. So the plan that I came up with, I don't remember the specifics again. This was a while ago now. But we ended up in possession of, like, an ambulance. I think, like, an older ambulance or something like that we, like, fixed up. I think we were kind of running out of, like, a mechanics or a chop shop or something like that. So we had some vehicles. So we had this, like, beat-up ambulance. And I'm like, okay, let's fix up this ambulance, make it look modern, make it look nicer. Let's get ourselves some uniforms. And, like, one of those, like, stretchers. And then my character, because I always played a hacker, I, like, hacked into the building. And I like spoofed, like, a notification or something, like a message that the guy living in that suite had called 911. So, like, the building was notified, like, oh, this guy, he just called out 911. And nothing else, like, he didn't actually call out 911. There was no log of the call. If they looked into it further, like, there would be nothing there. But it just was like, hey, this guy just called 911. So that, like, the front desk guys were kind of, like, aware that an ambulance was coming. And so then, like, a minute or 2 minutes later, we kind of burst in through the front door of the lobby with our stretcher. And we were like, oh, thank God we were right nearby when we got the call. Which way to the elevators, and we just kind of burst in frantically, and they're like, oh, right over there. They, of course, point us over to the elevators, and we head up. And, we get to the door, and we're slamming our fist on the door, like, sir, can you hear us? Are you okay? And of course, the guy has no idea what the hell's going on. Completely clueless about this whole thing. So of course he just answers the door. But as soon as he's, like, coming to the door and he's about to open it, and he, like, opens the door, we're like, all right, kick it in. He's not responding. Because we knew that there were cameras in the hallway. So there were cameras watching us, but obviously there were no cameras for the building inside the guy's suite. So we needed to make it look from the outside in the hallway that we were, like, responding, and he was unresponsive. So as soon as he, like, opens the door and unlocks it, we, like, kick in the door and knock him out as we rush in. So we knock the guy out. And then we're in his suite. He's knocked out. No one in the building is any of the wiser. They think we're just responding and he's in, like, cardiac arrest or whatever. And then, of course, we steal the bat. And we put it on the stretcher. And we put him on the stretcher, I believe. And we take him back down, and we throw him in the ambulance. And he's like, he's gonna be okay. He's gonna be okay. As we drive off. And then I think we, like, ditched him somewhere on, like, the side of the road. And we got the bat, and we drove off. And that was the end of it. So that was a lot of fun. I still remember that one. It's just that age-old principle of just, like, if you act like you belong, people will assume you belong. That sort of thing. But I just thought it was really great. And it's like the guy opened the door for us and we just knocked his ass out as we kicked it in. Good times. So, you know, I was really expecting them to use their question for God to like ask me like, oh, how would you steal this thing? You know, how do we do it? I was really waiting for it because I already had like the easiest answer of how to do it. But no, they were just like, all right, let's just go to the cave and we'll try and get that one instead. Again, still not questioning why no one else has gotten that emerald. Kind of a basic rule of loot in a dangerous location. Why is no one else taking it? So yeah, they left the town. They bought horses and they left town to go out into the wilderness. And they had kind of mapped out general locations based on what they knew of where these different things might be and kind of like a route that they can take to get all these things in order. And so they went to the nearest forest because that's where they're going to find red caps and a couple other things. And that's when I had them do the D20 rolls as they're searching to try and see if they find the red caps or if something finds them first. And they ended up getting into a random encounter with goblins, which they won, and it was good. So then afterwards, I was like, you know, I'm really surprised you didn't use question for God to ask anything. And so then they asked about the emerald. And so I told them, like, okay, the easiest way would just be buying a scroll of destroy magic, level 3 spell, to remove the magical effects around the case. And then a level 0 teleportation spell, Fetch, would teleport any item within medium range that you can carry in one hand into your hand. And a 1 pound emerald is big, but you could probably hold it in one hand. So that would just snatch it out of the case right into your hand. And, you know, the rest of that is probably just a little bit of sleight of hand and a distraction, and you're probably out of there with it in your coat before anyone can really even notice, especially if you go at like the busiest time possible. So that would be the easiest way to do it. Certainly not the only way to do it. There's probably a lot flashier ways to do it. But yeah, in that case, now I told them all that. They will not remember that by next week. And they will not go back and get it. So instead, they're probably going to go to the cave, which is okay with me, because the cave is going to be filled with kobolds, and I get to do all their fun trap mechanics. I need to think a little bit more about how the rumor started about this emerald and what the kobolds kind of do with the emerald. I kind of want to throw in a bigger, badder thing that they kind of work with or serve or something like that. I'm not quite sure yet. I think maybe it'd be kind of interesting or funny to, you know, because they kind of ally themselves with dragons a lot of the time because they're like little dragon people. So maybe something that they like think is a great and powerful dragon, but really isn't. Something like that might be interesting. I don't want to throw a dragon in there because it's a little too easy for them to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But I don't know, something. It'll be kobolds for sure. But at the end of the session, I leveled them up to level 2. Because they have 1 month now in-game. So I'll probably be leveling them up somewhat rapidly. So we have an exciting finale at the portal. And I can throw a lot of big shit at them. But, yeah. It's going alright. It's going alright. Okay. So that's that. This week, then, on this channel, more RimWorld, and maybe more Archipelago, maybe something else. I don't know. It's all up in the air. And then on the Exploring series, part 2 of Maslow's Fire. Make sure you check it out. If you liked part 1, or if you haven't watched part 1 yet. It's a good SCP. And then a fun little, speaking of heists, that's what the next SCP is going to be about. That'll be pretty cool too. But all right. My name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg, and I'll see you fine folks next week.